break, and we were talking about the BBI report and its implementation and how we are now going to move forward after those views are collected. And Honorable Owino, you are mid-sentence in terms of your opinion on how we should move forward with this.
Thank you. I said there will be a mechanism for people to channel their views after this has been done. These guys are very smart. They cannot just tell you, discuss and read without making that mechanism. Remember, this was just launched a few days ago, so that is coming. But I wanted to add that there is the law or lawmaking, but there's also the spirit of the law. Yeah. That is where Kenyans are losing. Let us be honest. Let us look beyond ourselves, so that when I make a law today, my grandchildren can still enjoy. Let's not look for ourselves. I said that before. That is the original BBI. Bridge yourself from self-greed to benevolence, to looking for national issues. Then we will have to get this done. Now, lastly, I want to say that the problem why we have been losing a lot of money is the system that we are using now. Yes. That the president appoint people from outside. They have never sometimes led anything. Their loyalty, total loyalty is to them. In such a scenario, if you are asked to do something, whether it's against your conscience, you would say, I'd rather protect my job rather than refuse to do what I'm being asked. You would rather go back to the Moi era when ministers could refuse and you are fired at 1 o'clock. But I know my first primary employer are the 1 inch.
The people.
And I take them. This document talks of now Parliament being given more power because they are the people's representative, with the Prime Minister right in there. That is totally different now because we do stuff and it goes to the executive.
Right.
It brings back to us needing 2/3.
Right.
You can never raise that. So in fact, most of the time, you find the executive making legislation through the back door. This is going to be cured by this document. So what we are saying to Kenyans, this document is a proposal. You will have time to read it. Not only head knowledge. Some people say, I've read it. You can read it 10 times, but if you don't change your attitude, your mind, the spiritual I was talking about, you're just the same because you're glued to what you think should be your protector. Read it with open mind, with projection of the future to come, and give your honest opinion on how it should be improved. That is what he's asking.
Ms. Agara.
Let me first point out that Kenyans actually know what they want. The information that is in that report came from Kenyans. The Constitution of Kenya was actually developed after getting opinions from Kenyans. Kenyans have always known what they want. It is just that we have people within our system who think Kenyans don't know what they want, and therefore they constantly want to prescribe what would be good for Kenyans.
Right.
Having said that, in terms of speaking about Kenyans, sometimes I worry when we start classifying who is more qualified to give their opinion about a matter of national importance. When I hear Weda saying that they hid in the hotels, I'm just wondering, so if they held the meeting under a tree, would it have reached Kenyans who are more Kenyans than the ones who came to the hotels? And did the task force at any point deny any group access to them? If they even went and spoke to certain politicians, personally, the moment I actually got a chance to speak to the BBI task force, we were late. We were very late. We were the last minute groups, and they gave us a chance to actually do a presentation. We did a substantive presentation with the National Women's Steering Committee. Now, for me, if they opened the door for me, I imagine that when they went to Mashinani, they also opened the door for different people to participate. They got opinions from everyone. They spoke to politicians on the ground. For me, for as long as they have interacted with Kenyans and they can confirm that they have spoken to Kenyans, numbers versus background, I would not dispute that because one person has had access to speak and have not spoken, therefore Kenyans have not been consulted. There's no Kenyan who's more Kenyan than the other. If we are going to be talking about the East Africa community, for example, and we're talking about trade in the East Africa community, you cannot collect all mama mbogas from the market to come and contribute to this conversation. But if you get their opinion of a few mama mbogas, you can now bring back the proposal they have made to the rest of them and say, do you like this or not? But a process where we expect that we're going to speak to all the 50 whatever million Kenyans we have is not possible, and then unless of course we go to a referendum.
Right.
But having said that, we must also acknowledge that there are people in this country of ours who are completely unaware of the problem we are dealing with. And for me, this is why I like reminding people why we eventually ended up with the BBI in the first place. We had a problem in this country. This country was in fact, I think we may have even lost this country if we had spent a few more days without. There are Kenyans who were even asking for guns and saying we need to teach each other a lesson so that everyone respects the other person. Now, for the handshake to have taken place and a conversation to start, then people start rubbishing the conversation even before it heads anywhere. I think I read a huge level of insincerity amongst the people. And apart from reading insincerity amongst these people, I also realize there are people who don't mind the bloodshed that goes on in this country. I come from a community that has already come up on this table. The moment you mention the Prime Minister, there's a community that eventually comes up in the conversation. And it has been Luo State, if you've been told there's a powerful Prime Minister. We lost very many people. Some of them are not even my direct relatives, but the pain of losing those people is still in my heart until today. So for me, when someone is being careless about how they're going to address this BBI matter, the first question I need to ask them is, are you saying all that blood was shed for nothing? Baby Pendo went to waste and the mother can go to hell? Right. Is that what they're saying? We must remember that that is where we are coming from. Once we remember that is where we are coming from, we must remember that we are trying to resolve a problem.
Yes.
We cannot act like Kenya doesn't have a problem. Kenya has a fundamental problem with the 9-point agenda that is in that document. And of course, with exclusion of important groups like women and youth, who need to be a part of the conversation because they form the majority of the population of this country.
Yes.
All right? If we forget where we're coming from, it becomes very easy for us to start making noise about whether Parliament should be the one dealing with this matter or whether we need a powerful Prime Minister or not. Nobody, for example, has told the Luo nation that the BBI report says we're going to have a powerful Prime Minister. They are saying, we have seen the proposal for a Prime Minister in the report, but we are suggesting that we get a more powerful Prime Minister.
Right.
During the break, Mheshimiwa was asking, why not have a powerful president? You see, the reason why you separate powers is because when one person has a concentration of all kinds of power, then they're likely to abuse them. When someone has a control of the military, they have a control of the revenue of the country. They now have a control of the government business. And they have you eventually have a person who is able to destroy the country at once or hold it together if they have good intentions. But when you separate these powers, you then backstop this person. So it's great to have a powerful president, but the balances must be there. And for me, those balances have been created by creating a parliament, by creating, you know, a judiciary. Yes. However, we have now found ourselves in a situation where now we have tyranny of numbers. And now, when we have tyranny of numbers, that president now has control of the agency that is supposed to be checking him.
Yes.
So let's not have these conversations as if we don't know that Kenya has problems. Let us focus on the fact that we have problems that we need to resolve, and those problems will be resolved by having a conversation. Yes. The other thing that I must address is this. Now, the task force had been given a timeline, and its time is over. So for them to do anything else after this, either they need to get an extension of their time, or a new task force will need to be formed to collect data. What I need to address is the fact that in this country now, you cannot pass anything without public participation, because one Kenyan will go to court and the judiciary will stop us, right? So we will need to have public participation for this document. The reason why we should not even be panicking about what the next step is right now is because that public participation needs to happen within a certain time, so that it looks like you give Kenyans enough time, and a good number of Kenyans will need to be reached by this report before we can claim that we have had public participation.
Okay.
One of the things that I really like about this report is, for example, the introduction of the public rapporteur, because we don't even have a mechanism for public participation.
Yes.
But then let us not fight public participation now. Let us not fight Kenyans reading this document now. Let us allow them to read as the roadmap is being defined. Let us now make our input and decide whether we want someone, as Weda proposes, to take the notes of what we are saying, or whether we want the task force to be extended so that they can take the feedback, whatever it is we want. But let us not throw the baby with the bathwater.
Absolutely. Now, I would like to shift gears before Honorable. I know Mr. Weda will want to jump in.
I've had the emotions.
Behind that.
Emotions. But just allow every junk to pass and mess up with the constitution because they're emotions. No. My sister, Pedro died, we grieve and we say, even Kimathi died, Jaramogi spent all this time fighting, and Kenya is becoming better. Emotions here that we pass BBI emotionally and whatever, no.
Honorable Tambo, please.
I think if we don't discuss this matter with the superminds, we may lose everything.
Yeah.
People are so much hyped by the BBI, but they are not understanding the content. The content of this BBI is actually what I would sit down and say, come on, what are we trying to achieve here? The narratives out there, the narrative is they wanted to bring peace because the winner takes all has been a problem.
Yes.
But the BBI did not address that. Why am I saying that? Because the same BBI says the party with the majority members will be the one to appoint the prime minister.
Yes.
Now, if the president comes from the party with the majority, the prime minister will also come from the same party. So how would you have cured the same problem we are trying to solve? These are the things that I'm saying we need to go through this document. Let me finish. You had your time. These are the things I'm talking about.
Right.
We are just talking with emotion. We need to audit this document. And people need to be given time. When we say that Kenyans need to be given time also to put their input into this BBI, it is because the same BBI report, when you go to the annex, you will see the people who attended, the people who are questioned, the people who are spoken to. Go to a county like Kitui, you will see it's only 4 people. Out of over 1 million people. How can 4 people make a decision for 1 million people? That's why we are saying bring it back to people. They just put the annex just there at the county, and the people who attended. You will see actually in one county, I saw only one person who was mentioned there. So how can one person make a decision for the entire county? It is totally unfair. So we are saying, bring this document to us. Let there be a mechanism for people to put their input, so that those views can be taken and considered. Then it doesn't matter whether they are going to be shortlisted or whatever, but people need to sit down and their views be heard. If you do not listen to us, we will not be having conversation. Why tell me to read? If you are giving it to me to read, you are giving me to read, so I do what?
Yes, absolutely.
You want me to bring some either amendment or I say something about it. And that view of mine must be respected. You cannot say whatever the BBI said is final and we have to take it like that, so it is either yes or no. Then we are not making any law here. We are not amending the Constitution. Kenyans must be given permission to amend the Constitution themselves.
I do agree with you. You should have a mechanism that starts with public participation, even the barazas you're talking about, to educate people, and then after that, get them to give feedback that will inform how this document will be changed, amended, and later on implemented, whether it's through parliament or referendum, whatever.
There's another thing I need to tell
Kenyans.
There's a process of amending the Constitution.
Yes.
I want to tell Kenyans, if we go that route, we may not have time, because you cannot break the law to amend the Constitution. There is a process. When you go from stage 1 to the last stage of casting the vote of referendum, we may not have time to what before the next general election.
Now, I do agree also with... Yes, I'm on your side on an issue, because what you are pointing out, you're bringing out the fact that there was a problem that necessitated, emotions aside, there were real problems that we were all seeing on the news that necessitated the need for the handshake, and later on the 9-point agenda that was behind the BBI. So I am with you on that. There was a need for the BBI.
There's an important point that I need to make here. Number one, is that actually, before I even make that point, emotions are actually a very important contribution to this conversation. Why should we leave them out? When Weda sees emotions, I see a dead child. I see a dead former protester in charge of ICT at IBC. And he may call it emotions or whatever it is, but for me, I see a different thing. Apart from that, I do not succumb to heckling Weda. You haven't read this report. The recommendation, Mheshimiwa, is that the president will appoint a prime minister from the party with the majority in the National Assembly, or the coalition of parties with the majority in the National Assembly. In the event that there is no party with a majority in the National Assembly, it is proposing that he'll then appoint the person who's most popular amongst the National Assembly members. So the person will be voted by the National Assembly. Does that sound like the president is being told to appoint from his own party? He's not. So even here, on this panel, you have people who have not read this report and they're busy heckling about it. This is why I'm insisting. Let us all read this report. And even for our own sake, when you're having these conversations on TV, Kenyans are listening. Let us not just gather people who can make the loudest noise about politics. Let us gather people who are going to help Kenyans digest. What is this about?
Honorable,
sister,
what is
what is
Honorable, we know. Let me finish the discussion for us.
Let me finish my point. No, let me finish. You finish yours.
Kenyans.
It is written in the report. I have it here.
What if the president comes from the party, I mean the popular party, is which the president comes from?
Then
that is number one.
Only then will you appoint someone.
Suppose that the other person, the popular person, also comes from the same party. What will happen?
Okay, that's why the moderator.
Now, yes, Honorable, let him speak.
That's why the moderator wants me to speak.
I was interrupted. This position that Mheshimiwa is presenting is a possibility.
Yes, it is.
If the most popular party is the president's party, then he may actually appoint from his party. All right? But the fact that he's going to appoint from his party doesn't mean that this report has now suggested that he must appoint from his party. Right. We will have situations where his party is not the most popular in parliament sometimes. Okay. And the conversation is beginning to have is a conversation Kenyans must be allowed to have.
All right.
What then would they do if this is the circumstance? They want to propose something different.
Honorable Owino, please, and as you will be the one closing the discussion.
Honorable Matambo is somebody I respect, but he got a little bit confused in the whole thing. Those 4 people did not make a decision.
Yes.
This is a proposal.
It is a proposal.
It's a sample that came from Kitui. So now the samples are all in. Now we are going for major participatory.
We've gotten an average of everything.
Now, what you are just saying is what we want people to say. If you don't want the president to appoint the prime minister, what do you want?
Yes.
You see now, we are getting confused. You make a decision, I don't want the document, and at the same time you say, okay, we should discuss it. No. Be clear to all Kenyans that this is a proposal that you need to give your views.
True. And
that you will be facilitated by a system so that your views comes in. Eventually, there will be 2 views. Either we maintain the presidential system or the parliamentary system or the Kenyan system.
Yes, I think that's
so that will come and people will vote and those who are many will carry the day. As for now, we still have a proposal. And in this journey, there will be noisemakers like Weda, and there will also be people who are reading and giving facts. So read for yourself. Yes. But the thing is, what my sister was saying, you know, when we state that people died, it's not just emotions. It's a fact. I lost about 7 people in my constituency, whom I'm now caring for their families because of the election violence. Right. So it is true that we have a problem. That is why we are here. So nobody should dare rubbish this document. Instead, let us improve it.
Absolutely. I think that's the Honorable Mtambo. We have to wind up. We have run out of time.
Let me wind up with a question.
Yes.
Does this document mean that there will be no election of the president? And will there be nobody opposing the president? And what will happen to that person who loses? Are we not going to go back there? Those are the questions which we need to ask ourselves.
Bring them in.
Which is why it is a proposal, and then we'll all read and come up with what we feel should be done. If we do not agree with what it says, then we can give our and then the system that Mr. Weda is saying is missing and you have said is coming we should make sure that we all have a way of gathering our views and then amending it however we feel fit. But at the end of the day, it should come from the people. I think that is a common sentiment that I think I'm gathering from my very passionate panel. Thank you very much for your sentiments. We're going to take a short break. When we come back on the other side, we'll